astronauts and government missions. New developments in rocketry will one day make it possible for anyone with enough cash to travel halfway around the planet in less than an hour.
It would be a lot more fun, and we're going to find very affordable ways to do this, to make a big-time thrust for a few seconds, and then to sit there and enjoy your meal in weightlessness and have a much better view.
We might have to say something like, sit down, here's your magazine, should have gone before you left, and we'll be in Tasmania in an hour, so don't bother us, we're flying the airplane right now.
An idea that once seemed futuristic is now within reach. The race is on, not between Cold War superpowers, but between pioneers in search of the next generation of technology to guide us into space.
You look out there and you see billions of stars. Everywhere you look, there's stars.
Apollo was wonderful, but I saw fading away this idea that, hey kid, you can go too.
This is how aviation started. It was an exciting time in the 1920s when people were flying in things that they built in their garages.
You give us the count.
Going on 15, 14, 13, 12.
Some people aren't going to make
11,
it, but that's okay. If you're going to die, you might as well die doing something you really
8,
enjoy.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
We got a video! We got the curvature of Earth! I can see the curvature. Look at that! Look at that! Look at the Earth! It's the friggin' Earth, man! That is so cool.
He's so happy about it, he can't stand it, folks. We've done something nobody's ever done before as an amateur.
It was in 1961 that Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human to be shot into space on board a ballistic missile. And it was in 1969 that Americans Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon. Though many hoped that we would quickly become a spacefaring civilization, dreams of widespread space tourism were put on hold. Space travel had been reserved for fewer than 400 people, carefully selected to experience the weightless infinity of space. But back on Earth, there are now plans to open space up to the entrepreneurs of the future. To capitalize on our love of space, big business is now investing millions to develop tourism in zero gravity. But such plans require a new space vehicle capable of becoming the Volkswagen of the eagerly awaited space millennium. Governments, entrepreneurs, and amateurs are now in a race to get a craft which is reusable, reliable, and cheap. The starting pistol was fired by Vice President Al Gore, announcing a contract to build an experimental spacecraft for the government agency, NASA.
Well, today marks the next chapter in America's journey to new worlds. With the knowledge we gain from the X-33 rocket, America will one day have a revolutionary new reusable launch vehicle. It will make space travel less expensive and more reliable for people and for payloads. And so today, we set sail for the future.
As they set sail for the future, the designers of the new X-33 must overcome the formidable problems of the past. Their aim is to supersede the most complex and sophisticated space vehicle ever built, the Space Shuttle.
Columbia's onboard computers have primary control of all the vehicle's critical functions.
But the shuttle never became the cheap, fully reusable workhorse that was promised. Each launch cost the best part of $1 billion.
T-minus 1 minute and counting.
We, NASA, are limited in what we could do in space because we spent too much of our budget on launch. Of a budget of $13.8 billion, we're spending close to $5 billion a year on launch. Think what we could do with that money.
7, we have a go for main engine start.
As the shuttle fights the powerful pull of Earth's gravity with its massive rocket engines, it is lifting not just itself and its payload, but the enormous weight of all its fuel and oxidizer. To reach orbit, it has to accelerate to a speed of 17,500 miles an hour. And like every spacecraft before, it can only achieve this by shedding parts as it climbs.
You know, it takes off from the solid rocket boosters, go into the ocean. Then the external tank falls away. So it's like a 3-stage vehicle. That's very expensive. Do you think we could build aircraft to go from New York to London and have, you know, the aircraft take off and then a piece drops off and then another piece? That's why it's inefficient.
For all its inefficiency, the shuttle can lift a cargo of 65,000 pounds in its large cargo bay, a tall order for the new vehicle which must somehow achieve the complete reusability which has eluded the shuttle.
So what we're talking about doing is building a rocket ship that takes off and everything that goes into space comes back. And then you reuse it over and over again. And all of a sudden, I begin to figure out how to do it lower cost. That's what we're talking about.
Offering a fixed budget of $1 billion, little more than the cost of one shuttle launch, NASA invited the nation's top space companies to compete for the X-33 contract. Its goal? The creation of a test vehicle that could prove its reusability. To assess the designs, NASA brought in a task force of experts. The problem which the new concepts are trying to solve, getting to orbit in a fully reusable craft, is one that NASA has worked on before. From the 1940s to the end of the 60s, America ran a top-secret program that was as bold and dangerous as it was successful. Called the X program, X was the classified designation for experimental flying vehicles. Between 1947, when the X-1 first broke the sound barrier, and 1967, the X-planes increased their speed 6-fold. Tragically, in the process, a number of X-pilots lost their lives. The program culminated in the X-15. Dropped from a plane and powered by a rocket instead of a jet, it crossed the boundary of space 60 miles up, where the lack of air meant no jet could breathe. It looked as though space planes, not ballistic missiles, would be the best way to carry humans into space. But then something happened which threw this whole idea off course.
There's nothing to hide at all. Who do you trust? That guy? Or people who see things that can't be explained?
Who was it? I don't know.
I'm French Stewart on Alien Invasion Week.
Beginning Sunday, February 28th on TLC.
Lexus ES300. Its new, more powerful engine will have an effect on you, even if you're not driving.
Took the 53 to the 1, didn't you?
Look, Marion, it's those snobs, the hand.
Who are you? We just
just vacationed in Aspen.
That's nice. We called all our grandkids this morning.
And you can still afford prime rib, old boy?
Actually, we're buying extra because of all the money we saved by using 10-10-3-2-1.
We save 50% on calls over 10 minutes, don't we, Tom?
How quaint.
Oh, frankly, we never look at prices.
Well, we do. And with 10-10-3-2-1, we saved $20 last month.
Joe.
Did you get that number?
10-10-3-2-1.
I'm raising my stock to buy.
This is a stock to avoid.
In this stock market, there's no room for uncertainty.
The company announced
What we do is we produce advice. That is our primary product.
This is when the work we do means the most.
I dig beyond the surface, what's going on behind the scenes.
Take advantage of all that Prudential has to offer.
A dollar sale.
We have the technology, we have the savvy, the care.
Invest with an edge. Invest with Prudential.
For the earliest delivery to the most U.S. cities, call 1-800-PIC-UPS.
It's late, it's wet, and a flat tire puts you up against the wall. Wouldn't it be great if you could just drive to safety? Now you can with Goodyear Aqua Steel Run Flat. Even with no air pressure, you can drive up to 50 miles at up to 55 miles per hour to safety. Aqua Steel Run Flat. Only from Goodyear.
If I had stayed in my bunk, I would have been killed in there.
Tonight, witness the failures of technology, the wrath of Mother Nature, the evil that lies in the hearts of men, as TLC reveals the face of terror through those who have survived.
You really don't have time to feel.
3 episodes of Survivors, tonight beginning at 8, only on TLC. Adventures for your mind.
Hey! No, down here. Instead of running out for stamps, shouldn't you be running your business? Imagine a simpler way. Get the personal post office from Pitney Bowes. Send mail without ever going out for stamps. Just weigh, punch in the postage, and voila. Professionally metered mail and no wasted postage. You can also add a personal message to get your mail noticed. And postage refills by phone in 30 seconds, day or night. Now listen up, because here's what you'll get. Besides a lot more time.
You'll get the personal post office and money-saving electronic scale.
So there's no wasted postage.
For a 90-day free trial.
Free is good.
You'll also get the Mail Marketer software.
Create really nifty direct mail to help your business grow.
Call now for your 90-day free trial, and you'll also get our Mail Marketer software absolutely free.
Now watch your business grow. Hey, I look good in red.
Be ready for the postage rate change. Call now for your 90-day free trial.
The personal post office. Mailing made simple.
A man-made celestial body for the first time in history overcame terrestrial gravity and flew into space. The Soviet government and the Communist Party declared, "We regard the victories scored in the conquest of space as an achievement not only of our people, but also of all mankind."
But President Kennedy didn't see it that way. He wanted to beat the Soviet achievement with an even greater American one, and fast.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
The mighty Saturn V staged rockets were chosen to be the workhorses of the Apollo program. Not because they were the cheapest or best way to reach the moon, but because their massive heavy lift capability far outshone any other system available at the time. But there was to be a high price paid. America reached the moon only by sucking up 4.5% of its entire federal budget for over a decade. worst of all, Apollo established the wasteful practice of reaching space in expendable multi-stage rockets.
About 2 to 3% of the total mass of the rocket ends up in space and the rest of it's thrown away. That's not a good way of doing business.
But the space race at the time had little to do with business and more to do with politics.
Go for landing. Retro. Go. Fido. Go. Guidance. Go. Control. Go. Telcom. Go. GNC. Go.
It didn't seem excessive to employ a standing army of over 10,000 ground crew and engineers to launch each Saturn rocket, as the shuttle still does today.
Looking great.
The Cold War was big government.
Control. We look good here.
The objective of the space program and the Eastern Bloc and Western Bloc was to show the technical superiority. Each side was trying to build bigger and more complex machines. It was not about opening the space frontier in entrepreneurialism and intellectual nourishment. It was about winning the hearts and minds of the uncommitted countries in this world. I'm proud of it. I participated in the Cold War. We had to win it. But in the process, we lost the bubble.
Apollo killed off the hope of routine access to space. The Saturn V's were retired. Now, like great dinosaurs, they litter the NASA sites as a reminder of all that was great and of all that could never be sustained. The ambition of creating a fully reusable launcher has, until recently, remained no more than a dream. As the NASA evaluators tried to decide which X-33 concept had the best chance of reaching orbit in a single reusable stage, they faced the unknown. Rockwell, the company who built the shuttle, offered a winged vehicle not unlike the shuttle itself, while Lockheed Martin opted to lose the wings and design a lifting body shape. But the concept from McDonnell Douglas had a clear head start. It was based on a demonstration vehicle they were already flying. At the Phillips Laboratory in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Air Force had been testing a revolutionary rocket called the Delta Clipper Experimental, or DCX. Originally commissioned as part of the Strategic Defense Initiative, what the Air Force wanted was a fast turnaround space truck that, unlike the shuttle, could be launched and reflown by a skeleton crew.
Morning, Connie.
Major Shell took part in every flight of the DCX.
Instead of doing it literally with thousands of people, with a DCX, the goal was 3 people to fly it in the operations center with less than 15 people on what we call touch labor on a vehicle.
The Air Force had set McDonnell Douglas a tough design goal, a combination of reusability, single-staged orbit, and a flight operations control center that looked more like a tiny outside broadcast unit than Houston's mission control. It was a return to the early days of the X vehicles, rapid prototyping using as much existing technology as possible. But the real revelation was the way the DCX flew.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, start. We have ignition. We are up. We have engine throttle up. Ascent is good. We're into translation mode. The excitement of seeing it fly the first time, sit there and hover in space without any movement. It was almost like it was hung up on strings. The excitement of, hey, this can actually work. We can get into space cheaply, affordably, and very often makes commercial space flight available for the general public much, much closer. Pressure's holding strong.
Who'd spent so long promoting the concept of single-stage vertical landing, it was a triumph.
I was one of the ones that argued that if you ran demonstrations like this, you would get people's attention. Even I didn't dream you would get so much attention as that thing did. And in a way, that's might be one of the better things that happen. Apparently, if you make a rocket do something different, everyone gets excited. In fact, on the first flight, some people have said, gee, it's even more exciting when it's coming down. And I said, yeah, I agree, but do you think it's really more exciting, or it's just you and I never saw one come back down before?
Landing high thrust, acceleration ramp down. We got a touchdown. Touchdown, right on gear, Engine shift off. All right!
On each flight, the DCX performed feats never seen before.
We did one rotation where we took the vehicle up and rotated through almost a 180-degree rotation. Dipped the nose to, I believe, about 10 degrees below the horizontal, the horizon, simulating the vehicle returning from orbit, and then came back through, rotated the vehicle back again to land. And that was done without any of the control surfaces reacting. That was all done with the engines.
McDonnell Douglas was confident that their track record put them ahead of their X-33 competitors. 18 months after the launch of the competition for the X-33, Vice President Al Gore revealed the winner.
This is the craft that can carry America's dreams aloft and launch our nation into a sparkling new century.
The unveiling of the chosen craft was a shock to many when they first saw the penguin-shaped vehicle.
Congratulations to the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works.
For the team from McDonnell Douglas to have the prize snatched from their grasp was a bitter disappointment. In the white sands of New Mexico, the successful flight trials of the DCX were to continue. But why had the promise of this revolutionary vertical lander been thrown away by NASA?
It lost. We ran a fair and open competition. This is how democracy works.
But worse was to come. Supporters of this novel approach to a fully reusable spacecraft soon saw disappointment turn to disaster.
Landing small negative. Exit out.
4 weeks after its rejection for the X-33, the DCX exploded. Failure of one of the legs caused the vehicle to topple on touchdown. A small fault, but for many, it was the end of a dream.
If it looks different, it's because it is different. Unlike Camry and Accord, front and side airbags are standard equipment. It's protected by a steel safety cage. And its warranty is not only different, it's America's best. The all-new Hyundai Sonata. It's not different for the sake of being different, but different for the sake of being better.
Your days of pushing me around are through. I got a better offer and I'm grabbing it. They even offered me a bonus. Can you even say that? Bonus. Bonus. Knock, knock. Who's there? A bonus.
Expect more from your credit card. Introducing Discover Platinum. With a new low rate and a cashback bonus award, it pays to discover Platinum.
Hello, bonus. Speaking.
Circuit City's the best place to save on your new DirecTV system.
Right now, you'll get $200 of programming from DirecTV and USSB when you buy a new DirecTV system from Circuit City. Enjoy more sports, movies, music, and pay-per-view with 2 free months of DirecTV Total Choice Platinum programming, 2 months worth of USSB Entertainment Unlimited, and 9 programming certificates, all with your new DirecTV system. Don't miss the savings at Circuit City.
Hertz Freedom Rates, only $25.99 a day in California and Florida.
Guys, come and see my castle.
With the freedom to pick up and drop off anytime. Just keep it over a Saturday night. Hertz will provide the great rates.
What castle?
The rest is up to you. Hertz Freedom Rates, only $25.99 a day in California and Florida, with the freedom to pick up and drop off anytime. Just keep it over a Saturday night. Hertz will provide the great rates. The rest is up to you.
In the midst of headlines and scandals lies a road that brought President and Mrs. Clinton to where they are today.
It appears that we have won the election.
Now, TLC presents a television premiere you won't see anywhere else. Follow the lives of the First Family and get a revealing inside look at their troubles and their triumphs. The Clintons, A Marriage of Power. Monday from 8 to 11 on TLC. Adventures for your mind.
Out in California's Mojave Desert lies the legendary Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, part of one of the country's largest aerospace companies. NASA opted for its high-tech, high-risk approach to the X-33, perhaps because of the Skunk Works' reputation for building top-secret planes on very tight schedules. And Lockheed saw the challenge of the X-33 as similar to the task they faced when building their famous Blackbird spy plane, known for record speeds. It was built from scratch in under 2 years. As the Skunk Works team gathered for a secret design review, they faced a schedule of less than 30 months in which to build a prototype of a completely new spacecraft.
Ask a question, you might not be able to stand the answer.
Though they had won the billion-dollar challenge, some were already wondering if they could really pull it off in time. The X-33 prototype would never itself go into orbit, but it's required to demonstrate the full range of new technologies needed for a final reusable launch vehicle called Venture Star. According to NASA, they chose the unusual Lockheed design because it offered the greatest technological challenge. The team was faced with the task of turning polished computer graphics into a machine which could fly.
Unless they're still doing some...
One of those who has been daunted by the scale of the problem is Chief Engineer Paul Landry.
Difficulty with putting man on the moon, to me, it was easier to do that than it is to do this program. Here we have a very aggressive schedule, a cost factor that's limiting us on one side, and the technologies that we're having to try to use to get there in that short schedule. The integration of those 3 key issues is probably the most difficult, which makes this one a harder program to work than the Apollo.
Unusual for a project of this size, the original concept came from just one man, Dave Urey.
It started out with me alone, and then I got one other person in to give me a sanity check, and he gave me a passing grade, and so I started looking for a little funding so I could bring a team together. And once the team came together to work on this, then it took on a life of its own, because I had other minds with other ideas, and it was all converging on a better and better concept. And so I just let it grow. I took the approach of letting the engineering team do the engineering, and I would go try to sell it to people to get us some funding and get it built.
It's out of the engine, which will translate into another...
Regarded as something of a creative maverick, Urey resigned from Lockheed before the X-33 contract was awarded, but was brought back as a consultant on the vehicle he conceived.
I see Dave on occasions, and I keep telling him, next time you have a dream, do us a favor, wake up, forget about it, and go back to sleep again. Because what we've done is we've created the next generation launch vehicle, but let me tell you, it's going to be very painful to get there.
The essence of the challenge posed to Lockheed by Yuri's dream was that all the elements had never been combined and tested before. This was a new type of airframe built of novel materials, powered by an engine which had never flown before. It was Yuri's solution to the enormous problem faced by any single-stage rocket. To reach space, the whole structure, including the payload, has to weigh just 10% of its liftoff weight. All the rest must be fuel. In effect, the vehicle itself must weigh next to nothing. Only one vehicle has ever come close to achieving this: the record-breaking aircraft Voyager, built by legendary aircraft designer Burt Rutan. It was so light it was able to fly non-stop around the world without refueling. Its secret lay in its structure of advanced composites, plastics reinforced with carbon, which are light but incredibly strong. In addition to using these lighter materials, Yuri chose to get rid of the wings to lose even more weight.
That was really my starting point. I wanted to get rid of the wing. We're not counting on them for lift at all. The lift is provided by the body. But in order to fly the vehicle, control it, we need the fins. But if you look at our vehicle, it's one big wing. The lifting body is a thick delta wing. And so we haven't got rid of wings, we've just changed the shape of the wing so it makes a better hydrogen container.
Yuri's solution was to choose a fuselage shape known as a lifting body. Its aerodynamics gave this strange structure the lift it needed to fly. NASA had conducted extensive tests on lifting bodies prior to the shuttle. Once again, the experiments led to some spectacular disasters before a better shape evolved. But these were all vehicles without engines. The problem of mounting a rocket in a lifting body was never solved. Yuri now thought he knew how to crack that problem by using a novel rocket engine called Aerospike. The Aerospike engine is lighter than a normal rocket because it has no bell-shaped nozzles and is easier to integrate with the lifting body shape. The engine is also more efficient because the rocket plume can adjust itself automatically at different altitudes. As the team continued to wrestle with the problem of how to build all these new concepts in a relatively short period of time, they became keenly aware that competition and advances from elsewhere could render their efforts obsolete. NASA has already issued numerous contracts to develop a more efficient engine for another generation of spacecraft beyond the X-33. But more cautious voices are warning of the magnitude of what has to be achieved for any vehicle to reach orbit in a single stage.
My own judgment right now is that we're not at the point where the technology is really ready to commit to a single stage to orbit vehicle, and of course that's why the X-33, which was picked out of these three concepts, is really not a vehicle to go into space, but it's an experimental airplane, like the X-15 was an experimental airplane, or like the lifting bodies were experimental airplanes to get us into the shuttle. My guess is that we're looking at a 20-year time scale before we really have a single stage to orbit vehicle.
In the future, though, it may not be NASA which sets the pace. Private spacecraft builders have arrived on the scene, and for them, 20 years is far too long. In the new space race, it could be the impatient small-scale entrepreneurs who will win.
RX300. Motor Trend Sport Utility of the Year. Fluid. Over any surface.
How many sugars do you want?
Oh, I'll take 2. Hey, look at the telephone.
Keep your eye on him. He'll be over every day to use it.
That's okay. Just as long as he dials 1010 321 first.
Isn't 1010 321 great? You should see how low my phone bill is.
And now it's even better, you know. Saves 50% off calls over 10 minutes.
Right, day or night. So I save big on all my most important calls.
Like when I call my boyfriend in New York.
Right, like when you call your boyfriend in New York. Wait a minute, boyfriend? You got a boyfriend?
For high-speed express service to Europe, call 1-800-PIC-UPS.
My father's starting a new business, and he's been worried about income as he's not getting it, basically.
So we decided to come in and talk to Robert.
I recommended we talk to our fixed income department to possibly come up with different investment ideas that would be appropriate for them.
I tend to think you're a bit more risky than I like to be.
You know, the world doesn't stop growing just because you retire.
I helped guide them through some of the fixed income investments that were available. Typically, everyone has a common goal of financial security.
And I can feel secure feeling that my father is secure.
You're watching TLC, Adventures for Your Mind.
If I had stayed in my bunk, I would have been killed in there.
Tonight, witness the failures of technology, the wrath of Mother Nature, and the evil that lies in the hearts of men as TLC reveals the face of terror through those who have survived.
You really don't have time to feel.
3 episodes of Survivors, tonight beginning at 8, only on TLC, Adventures for Your Mind.
Oh, hi, honey. How are you?
This is a crime that's 12 seconds from happening, but won't.
So, honey, how's California?
Because someone saw the writing on the wall.
In a world you can't always trust, there's one name you can. For over 135 years, Brinks has been protecting people and their valuables around the world. Now, this same trusted name can protect your family. Brinks introduces the Brinks Protect a Life sale. Call this number by February 28th, and Brinks will install its standard monitored system for only $99 or less. Call for the special offer in your area. But there's more. Brinks will also install a second easy-to-use keypad. $125 value, absolutely free. But you must call by February 28th. When it comes to the finest in home security, there's only one Brinks.
You're watching News Channel 5 at 6, where the news comes first.
There are Emmy Awards for people in TV, Oscars for movie stars.
And then there are awards like the one unveiled today for people willing to shoot themselves into space.
Now, all you have to do is privately build a rocket.
It's got to be able to carry at least 3 human adults, go to 100 kilometers altitude, 62 miles, which is above the boundary of space, come back safely, and then launch again in 2 weeks. It needs to be reusable, low cost, and be able to carry you and me into space.
Anyway, here's a neat thing
At the largest air show on Earth, the faithful are gathered to hear from the man tipped to win the infamous $10 million X Prize, Burt Rutan, builder of the Voyager airplane.
How many here are familiar with the X Prize? Okay. You know how I feel about putting up prizes rather than government research money to get breakthroughs and to get research done and to get it affordable and to get it so that people can do it. Well, guys, it's way past our time. NASA has spent too long screwing us. When I say screwing us, they are in the way instead of helping us as far as you and I go into space and using flight out of the atmosphere. It is as if they don't want us to ever go. Leaving the atmosphere is a piece of cake. and yet we're not doing it yet. Well, we're going to be doing it because there's an incentive out there, and that is the first one of you guys, maybe it'll be somebody in the tent. I'm going to try it. First one that builds a spacecraft without any government money and flies 3 new astronauts and does that twice in 2 weeks and reuses his home-built spacecraft, you get $10 million.
The X Prize has set the internet buzzing. Surf the net and you'll find a mind-bending array of concepts. In fact, one of the more bizarre has attracted serious attention from the likes of writer Tom Clancy. The Roton is a fully reusable launch vehicle with rockets mounted at the tips of its helicopter-like rotor blades. Its designers hope to build the craft with the help of Burt Rutan himself. In the middle of the Mojave Desert, not far from Edwards Air Force Base and the Lockheed Skunk Works, is Burt Rutan's famed company, Scaled Composites. Bevan McKinney and Gary Hudson, designers of the Roton, have come here to discuss the lightweight materials needed to build it.
The tail fin for the Pegasus. Interesting piece of hardware.
When you first proposed this idea, you know, you're a propeller head. You're talking about spinning things, and I don't know why spinning things are humorous to people, but they are. And it's a crazy concept. It's not anything like an existing rocket configuration. It's not, you know, people have been convinced now that airplanes are what rockets may look like in the future, and this isn't that either.
Strange as it might seem to use helicopter technology on a space vehicle, the Roton does have a precursor. The Hornet was a tiny helicopter designed in the 1940s. Instead of rockets on its rotor blades, the Hornet had ramjet engines.
Interestingly enough, among engineers that we've talked to who are competent helicopter and rocket designers, we have not yet found one who has given us a reason why it will not work. Usually after about 10 minutes of saying, well, gee, that can't work, they say, well, actually that helps you here or here or here, and by the time they're done, they're asking if we need an extra consultant to hire on.
When the Roton team first brought their idea to the meticulous Burt Rutan, they were encouraged by his enthusiastic reaction.
It was the first time in probably 10 years in which I looked at something and I said, wow, there is something really, really significant here. I'm a helicopter pilot, and I know that you can take a helicopter at any altitude and fail the engine, and it's actually a very good way to get down, especially when you're flying over unfriendly terrain. It's a better way to get down than an airplane. So if you think about it, especially a reusable spacecraft that's got to not just go up, but come down also. And keep in mind, coming down is the big problem. I think coming down by hovering on rocket thrust is a stupid answer, frankly. This is a wonderful way to get down. To use the rotor as a decelerator, and then to use that stored energy to stop your rate of sink, phenomenal.
Despite the multitude of technical challenges still facing the Roton, its biggest advantage is its ability to fly and land anywhere.
Roton is a very liberating form of space transportation device. It will be able to be used commercially. It will fly from remote airfields with the same facility as an ordinary aircraft. And secondly, it will mean for the first time, ordinary people will be able to go into space at a reasonable cost.
Although Burt Rutan has his own idea to win the X Prize, he likes the simplicity of the Roton concept.
The space shuttle is absolutely the most complex rocket that will ever be done, because the breakthroughs in the future will be towards simplicity, not towards more complex.
The Roton team needs more funding before they can build a prototype, but they are not the only X Prize contenders all ready to have started work. One of the other groups has chosen to return to the oldest idea of all, the airplane. According to Bob Zubrin, a former Lockheed Martin design engineer, this is the most natural way to space. He and his colleague, Mitchell Burnside Clapp, a former Air Force test pilot, left their jobs to start a company dedicated to making access to space affordable and routine. They believe that with funding, they'll be able to beat the much more complex X-33 and get to space cheaply.
We're going to have vehicles that can be produced in large numbers, and we're going to have vehicles that can be supported by ordinary airfield technicians, not by PhDs. And that's why we have a vehicle that uses kerosene for its fuel, not liquid hydrogen. And that's why we have a vehicle that you can move routinely around on its own jet engines, just like a Learjet, instead of having to stack it on top of a Boeing 747 and move it across the country at very great peril and difficulty as the shuttle is moved after a launch. No, it's got to be something which is really operational if it's going to be something in everyday common use and inexpensive.
While still a pilot in the Air Force, Burnside Clapp had his first stab at designing a reusable space plane that would not itself go all the way into orbit. Instead, the rocket plane would deliver its payload with the help of a small second-stage booster before itself returning to Earth.
Came to me as I was moving rapidly back and forth between the aviation community at Edwards Air Force Base and the experimental reusable rocket ship community, because I was also chosen to be flight crew for the DCX vertical takeoff, vertical landing rocket demonstrator at the same time.
200 feet, gears down. Landing high thrust, cell ramp down. She's looking really good. -6, -4, -3, small negative.
And I became convinced that vertical landing, especially powered vertical landing, was a dangerous thing. It was an unusual, dangerous, new, risky flying practice that, at the end of the day, did not seem to me to be feasible. And I thought about tanker operations as being routine and comfortable, and I realized, as I started designing the airplane, that it would, in fact, work out quite nicely with in-flight refueling. The Pathfinder vehicle takes off horizontally, the way people were meant to fly. He flies up to a tanker where they transfer the bulk of the propellant needed for the flight into space from the tanker by making the tanker do the hard work of lifting the bulk of the propellant off the ground. The aircraft that goes into space can be lighter. Everything becomes simpler and becomes a fundamentally buildable airplane. And so, for Pathfinder, we are attempting to adopt an aviation pattern from the very, very beginning. We fly under standard certification rules. We do nothing dangerous. We don't violate field length boundaries just because we have a rocket aboard. We're an airplane, first and last. We're an airplane that has a special heat shield and a rocket engine and carries an oxidizer as well as a fuel. But at the end of the day, we're an airplane.
In fact, so compelling and practical is the concept of space planes that they could ultimately spell the end of the age of the airplane. By using ordinary kerosene instead of the expensive liquid hydrogen used by most rockets, space planes could soon compete with the immense operating costs of long-haul jets. And for the man who designed a plane that could fly around the world on only one tank of fuel, such an idea seems especially attractive.
To sit in an airliner burning fuel continuously at 30,000 feet going all the way to London can't be the best way to go there. It would be a lot more fun, and we're going to find very affordable ways to do this, to make a big time thrust for a few seconds and then to sit there and enjoy your meal in weightlessness and have much better view and re-enter over London and land. I mean, that's got to be a much better way to travel, right?
Well, I'm afraid there's probably not going to be beverage service on an orbital flight. The passengers will be in zero gravity for a good chunk of the flight. So I think for safety reasons, we might have to say something like, sit down, here's your magazine, you should have gone before you left, and we'll be in Tasmania in an hour, so don't bother us, we're flying the airplane right now.
It seems fitting that at the dawn of the new millennium, there is evidence everywhere of plans for space hotels and futuristic space transports for the tourist astronauts of the not-so-far-off future. The idea that space and orbital transport could be the next big business opportunity, once someone can solve the problem of getting out of the atmosphere cheaply, is firing imaginations all over the world, whether they can do it yet or not.
I want to be kind of the American Airlines of the 21st century. We can provide transportation to orbit. We can provide transportation anywhere on the surface of the Earth in a much faster and efficient system. When you're going through space to get to somewhere, you can get anywhere on the surface of the Earth in 45 minutes. It means London, for example, is 31 minutes from California. Tokyo is 26 minutes from Washington. You can travel at speeds because you're moving out of the atmosphere. There's the area of cargo. I had talked with UPS and FedEx many years ago when we were first proposing our vehicles, and we talked about the fact that for parts of Australia and Japan and New Zealand, you could offer a special service, pick up by 9 a.m. in the morning, delivery to the west coast of the United States and Canada by 5 p.m. the previous day, for those occasions when it really did have to be there yesterday.
Okay, you probably think they look alike. But with Gateway, you get basic help over the phone for as long as you own it. After a month, you pay for it. Here, you get a color printer. Nope, not here. This one you can trade in toward the purchase of a new one after 2 years. Yours forever. Still think they look alike? We'll build you a PC with an Intel Pentium 2 processor for $1,598. Call us or come into Gateway Country.
Hi, I'm Bob Vila, and I want to show you another great innovation in Craftsman hand tools. It's the Craftsman Quick Wrench, exclusively from Sears. The Quick Wrench is a combination wrench with a unique open-end design that makes it work like a ratchet. An ordinary open-end wrench has to be removed and repositioned after every turn. But the Craftsman Quick Wrench stays in continuous contact, making the job faster and easier. And what about those places where a ratchet and socket won't fit? That's where the Quick Wrench really comes in handy. It's made to reach right into tight spaces, and the ratcheting action gets the job done in no time. The Craftsman Quick Wrench can be used almost anywhere, in the garage, in the yard, and in your home. No toolbox is complete without a Quick Wrench set. And because it's a Craftsman hand tool made in America, it's guaranteed forever.
Call now to order your set of 6 Craftsman Quick Wrenches in standard for only $19.99 plus shipping and handling. Use your Sears card or the credit card and call 1-800-479-0011. Call right now.
Do you want to make more money? Of course, we all do. So call this toll-free number to find out how easy it is to train at home for a better career. At ICS, more than 10 million men and women have prepared for new careers without ever setting foot inside a classroom. And now, at home, in your spare time, you can get your career diploma or even your degree. Choose from any one of these courses.
Call 1-800-609-8662 for free information. There's absolutely no obligation. That's 1-800-609-8662.
In the midst of headlines and scandals, lies a road that brought President and Mrs. Clinton to where they are today.
It appears that we have won the election.
Now, TLC presents a television premiere you won't see anywhere else. Follow the lives of the first family and get a revealing inside look at their troubles and their triumphs. The Clintons, A Marriage of Power. Monday from 8 to 11 on TLC. Adventures for your mind.
Here at TLC World Headquarters, we classify UFO reports 3 ways. You've got cases of mistaken identity, a few hoaxes, and some things that can't be explained. TLC puts all the reports together and calls it Alien Invasion Week.
Beginning Sunday, February 28th on TLC.
Now, when we get too close to the truth, something like this usually happens, but not this year, right?
Alien ship approaching, weapons armed.
So I'm just flipping around the television, all of a sudden I come across this Animal Planet channel. You don't plan on watching it, you're just flipping around and boom! You're watching this crazy little Australian guy named Steve Irwin. I've been wrestling crocs since I was knee-high to a dingo. 24 hours a day, this man is in a bush, staring at a crocodile's head coming out of the water. I'm gonna dive into this lake, filled with crocodiles, just to see what happens.
Catch the real crocodile hunter, Mondays at 9, only on Animal Planet.
I can't balance a checkbook. He's shoving half his body in a crocodile's mouth in some swamp. It's got handles.
Though dreams of would-be space entrepreneurs are being nourished by talk of cheap access to space for all. In reality, the race to build a backyard spacecraft remains a much more expensive and dangerous operation than most would like to admit. Many are waiting for an elusive breakthrough which could change everything.
We're going to look back at it and say, wow, why didn't we do this earlier? You know, it will become so obvious once somebody has done it. You know, it's like the 4-minute mile. Once you can demonstrate that you can get to space cheaply, the first person who does it will kind of break the door.
Down and I'm going to smoke that.
Huh? It should just come out by itself.
Yeah.
There could be nothing with it.
I see it? No, I didn't see it.
It went up about 100 feet.
You kidding, guys?
Hopefully at some point the amateur rocketeer will be able to perform at a level that perhaps NASA's at today.
You know darn well that private individuals could do it a heck of a lot cheaper than NASA.
Well, I've always worried about the term cheap access to space because I think we're, in a certain sense, fooling ourselves. To get into space, you have to achieve an orbital velocity of 17,000 miles per hour. And that's never going to be cheap, really. That's a kind of a given.
All three engines are now running at full throttle. Columbia is traveling over 1,000 miles per hour at 1 minute and 29 seconds. Relying heavily on the solid rocket boosters to triple its rate of speed over the next 60 seconds.
The hazards of spaceflight are very considerable. It is a dangerous enterprise. You know, as the more we do this, the risks get better. I mean, you know, in an airplane, there's 1 chance in 10 million that you won't get off the airplane alive. That's the kind of risk that people can take without understanding the risk. If the risk is 1 in 100, which is what we're talking about in the case of the shuttle, there's no way I can justify that. People who are not trained and not knowledgeable should fly.
Even though it's been more than a decade since the Shuttle Challenger took the life of teacher Krista McAuliffe, for many at NASA, the memory is still painfully fresh.
Engines throttling up, 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go with throttle up.
Challenger, go with throttle up. 1 minute, 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7
She had no idea. She had no way of judging the risks. The 2 or 3 months that they did to train her, there was no way she could have learned that. And I just am morally opposed to doing that kind of thing.
But for those who experienced the pioneering days of the X vehicles, when sometimes pilots died at the rate of 2 a month, risk is the price of progress. In their view, there is no other way forward.
On a count of 10, 9, 8, 7.
I'm willing to take the time and try and design a vehicle that I'm willing to put my life in. And if it doesn't work, it's my fault. It's not somebody else's fault.
6, 5, 4.
I think if no one dies going after this prize, why then we're not really going out and truly searching for new ideas.
2, 1, ignition.
In this time of experimentation and pioneering spirit, the frontier of space appears closer and closer. We're reminded of the great explorers of the past, willing to lose their lives to break new ground. The race is on, and the future may be upon us sooner than we think.
Science Frontiers explores the past, present, and future of space travel. Are we closer to colonizing Mars than anyone imagines? Find out next on TLC, Out of This World Adventures for Your Mind.